We've probably all heard the phrase, God loves you, or God is love. I heard it a lot growing up in my religious ed classes, and it is a true statement and something that is very foundational to all of our lives, but it's something that can almost seem trite or meaningless when you hear it all the time, but you don't really know what that feels like, or you've never experienced the love of God. So, what is it like for us to experience His love? What does it mean when we know ourselves loved as God? Not just someone telling us, and even believing it in the mind is different than experience it in the heart. I heard a good metaphor for this, or a good example of what that could look like. And the example was of, I could put myself as being the example of a high school boy who has his first girlfriend. And when that happens, you see a drastic change in that person. The biggest one being that he starts to bathe, actually. He starts to smell better. He walks taller, and he appears just so much happier. And the reason is that he knows that someone cares about him. He knows that someone has a deep and abiding care, like that he talks to this person each night. That's a good metaphor for what it looks like for us to know ourselves loved by God. That we start to change in the ways that we view the world. Things are a little bit more sunny and bright because we know that there is someone who cares about us. And if that metaphor is a good one for just a boyfriend and a girlfriend, just think about the one who has created all of us, who has given us every good gift. Knowing ourselves loved by our Creator is so much deeper and greater than any relationship we can have on this earth, be it as good as they are. Today, we hear in our first reading of these three young men who are brought before King Nebuchadnezzar. This is in the book of the prophet Daniel, and they are staunchly going to stick to their guns and their faith in the God of Israel, even when this king wants them to worship their gods. So he throws them into a fiery furnace. But they have such confidence in their God. They know that they're loved by their God, by the God of Israel, by our God, that they are happy to go in there. And they are singing and dancing and praising the Lord while in the midst of the flames. And while they're in there, there is one like a son of God that appears. God is with them because he loves them. And Jesus as well talks to the Pharisees and scribes and tells them that no one who sins, or everyone who sins, is a slave to sin. Being a son of God, though, means that we don't feel that tendency to sin quite as much. When we know ourselves as sons and daughters of God, that tendency to sin is lessened. The reason being that we know that it separates us from God, and we don't want to be separated from the one who loves our hearts, our souls, and the one that we love as well. So I think today's a great day for us to ask the Lord to really show us experientially his love for us. Just ask him in a moment of quiet just to say, Lord, show me your love for me. And it's not too much for him to do. It's not too much to ask because he's already there loving you, wanting you to know how much you are loved. This is one of the deepest desires of his heart, for us to know how loved we are. And so, my friends, God loves you. And it's not just a trite saying. It's the truth, and probably the most foundational truth of our lives.